So if you'd like to resume, Keith, please feel free.
No problem.
For some reason, it just quit on the laptop. The sound quit. So we're on the iPhone right now.
Very good. Well, okay, just a quick sort of like jog back just so we know where we're at. The solution is always to join with the Holy Spirit. But A Course in Miracles isn't written as a course in the positive. It's a course in noticing our decision for the negative and saying no to that decision for the negative. So to choose the Holy Spirit, we must first say no to the ego's no, to the ego's interpretation. You must let your question go. Should I do this? Should I do that? What will make me happy? A judgmental or opinionated question has no answer, the Course tells us, because it's already a statement. It doesn't want an answer. It wants a confirmation of what it's already saying with its own statement. So we have to let the question go. If you have joined with the Holy Spirit in your mind, it doesn't matter which job you take, because that peace and love of the Holy Spirit is all that you need. And no decision that you make can be wrong, because nothing can take the love and peace of the Holy Spirit away from you, no matter what. So the question isn't what's important. Only by acknowledging that the question isn't important do we get to shut down the ego's opinions that block the sound of the Holy Spirit. And the sound of the Holy Spirit is simply love and peace. And if we've done that, we can re-engage with life and simply choose a loving and effective way of moving forwards in the dream. The sure knowledge that it doesn't actually matter. All that mattered was my joining with the Holy Spirit, that I didn't make a decision as an ego. We can't skip steps. And the good news is that you don't have to be utterly without judgment, fear, or the belief that the question is important to enter into the holy instant. That's the good news. Here's the bad news. You must decide you don't want to keep the errors. You must want to be free of them, even if some of them are still there. That is what's essential. In chapter 15, Jesus says, the necessary condition for the holy instant does not require that you have no thoughts that are not pure, but it does require that you have none that you would keep. I have to say, I must have decided wrongly because I'm not at peace. And I've decided wrongly because I'm choosing with my ego instead of with the Holy Spirit. I have to say, I don't know what anything is for, despite my ego thinking it's right. I must, crucially, be open to an answer that is not the question I'm asking. To get to the Holy Spirit's love, both in forgiveness and for guidance, we must first say no to the ego's rejection of the Holy Spirit. And the question is, in fact, the ego's rejection of the Holy Spirit. You've got to say no to your question before you can hear his voice and have an echo. Okay, I promised you in this talk I would tell you how to easily hear the voice of the Holy Spirit. You can easily hear his voice, which is only stillness, oneness, love, and peace, by letting the question and all its anxiety and judgments go, and by not needing the echo. The more you need the echo, the less you will hear the voice, which is only ever a song of thanksgiving and love, and there's no echo without it. And you can have that insignificant echo easily only after the love, and only when you know the echo is not important. When you know only the joining matters, only the love matters. The less important you think it is to hear actual guidance, the easier it will echo in your ears. You cannot bring the light to the darkness. You cannot bring the Holy Spirit into the darkness of your ego's victimization script to fix it for you or to tell you which illusory choice to make. You must bring the darkness to the light for forgiveness and for guidance. And that means you go up and join with the light. And then you'll put a right-minded interpretation on the darkness. And right-minded action will simply happen through you. And you won't be invested in it. There is only one problem and one solution. The decision to be separate is the problem. Joining with the Holy Spirit by deciding against the mistaken choice to be separate is the only answer. In that one solution, are psychic echoes heard and vision ignited. And the psychic echoes and vision is nothing. Only the love in your right mind matters. Only the decision against being separate in order to join with that love means anything. It's all about getting back to the love. Love is all that's ever going on. Please don't think what comes from love is what matters. All you want is the love. And let what comes from love take care of itself without investment in it. In miracle principle number 2, Jesus says, miracles as such do not matter. The only thing that matters is their source, which is far beyond evaluation. So he told us right at the very beginning, their source is love and peace. Don't confuse the form and the content. The form is nothing. The content is everything. Stop needing to have a pretend genie Holy Spirit telling you as an individual what to do. When you join with the real Holy Spirit, he will not tell you what to do. But when you are joined with him, you will be loving and helpful, effective and peaceful, psychic and connected with all minds. But what you do doesn't matter. And what you know doesn't matter. Only joining with him matters. Want only that, and everything else will be given to you. Now, I cannot let the talk end there without talking about a massive elephant in the room. And I'm really going to stretch you guys with this one. If the Holy Spirit doesn't believe in the separation, and he doesn't, therefore, believe in the world, and he does nothing in the dream, or he would be insane by making it real. If his only script is the ego's script forgiven, and he has no script of his own other than forgiveness of the existing script.
He's got the cabinets he's bringing up.
Cheryl, can you mute? Can you put your mute on, Cheryl?
I'm sorry.
That's great. Okay, so if the Holy Spirit has no script, his only script is our own script forgiven, what the hell is A Course in Miracles? Because it sure looks like Jesus, as a manifestation of the Holy Spirit, saw mankind's separateness, made it real, and intervened in the script. He did something in the dream. He planned a very specific course, and he chose an ego and gave her a mission to bring it into the world to other egos because it's important. That's how it looks, and none of that is true. A Course in Miracles is a side effect. It's a miracle that doesn't matter, only its source matters. It is not what Jesus or the Holy Spirit was doing. It is an echo of the voice of the Holy Spirit. Helen spent 7 years of her life scribing the course. It was very stressful for her because she resisted it so much all the way through. She never really practiced it or claimed to practice it. In her right mind, she knew it was absolutely true, but she wasn't ready to let go all the way into the light that she felt so keenly. She knew deep down that this is what she was doing, defending against Jesus. Later in her life, she was talking to the echo of Jesus's voice and said to him, well, at least I fulfilled my mission. I at least scribed the course for you. And the echo answered, oh, Helen, this was never about you scribing some course. And Helen was gobsmacked and asked, and what was all this for? And Jesus answered, I love you. I love you. That's what it was about. The love. The only thing that mattered was that Helen joined with the love of the Holy Spirit in her right mind. And what came from that love is incidental, a side effect, a dream world consequence that's beside the point. You must understand that Helen was very advanced spiritually, in the sense that she could feel the love and hear the sacred stillness and peace of the Holy Spirit with near perfect clarity in her mind. The Course tells us that the more advanced spiritually we become by undoing judgment, the more vicious the ego becomes. It fights for its life as it senses its end. For Helen, her ego threw up massive defenses against the love in her right mind. She was a control freak about everything. She was constantly fearful of everything, which was symbolic of her fear of the love that could wipe away her ego in a heartbeat. She embarked on a war against God by loving the King James Bible, which she could quote backwards and forwards, but hating absolutely everything it said. She loved the archaic poetic writing style, but she hated, feared, and rejected God for what it said. Helen hid lots of her remaining guilt in her judgment of God and the Bible. That was the darkness of her ego script to keep her separate from the Holy Spirit. When Helen joined with the Holy Spirit in her mind, she automatically brought the darkness of her script to the light. She brought the contents of her mind to the correction of the Holy Spirit. A Course in Miracles, therefore, is the King James Bible brought to the light. It is the King James Bible given a right-minded interpretation and perception. It is the King James Bible forgiven. It is Helen's script forgiven. It is her blocks to the awareness of love's presence undone. And it's just a side effect of the only thing that mattered, which is her choosing to join with the love and peace of the Holy Spirit in her mind. That's all that ever mattered. So if you wonder why Jesus uses such archaic, flowery, and complicated syntax in the way he speaks in the Course, well, now you know he didn't. That's how the King James Bible reads. The only reason the echo of Jesus's voice quotes Shakespeare and speaks in iambic pentameter and blank verse is because Helen adored Shakespeare. That's what was in her mind and script and got brought to the light. Jesus doesn't believe in Shakespeare or any other ego. The only reason the Course is explained through Freudian psychology is because Helen is a psychologist. The only reason the Course comes from Jesus and uses Christian terminology is because Helen was obsessed with Jesus, even though she was at war with him. The only reason it has the form of textbook, workbook, and manual is because Helen was a teacher. The form is all Helen. It is her darkness brought to the light and reinterpreted. It is her own script forgiven. So it's very, very, very helpful to us. It's an astounding spiritual document. But the form isn't what matters. Only the content matters. And the content is the love that inspired it. We cannot confuse form with content, because the echo of Jesus's voice talks about things that happened in Jesus's life, That doesn't mean those things necessarily historically happened. It is just the stories in Helen's mind given a right-minded interpretation. Whether they happened or not is irrelevant. All that matters is purpose. Jesus tells us there's no truth in the dream, only purpose. Nothing the echo of the voice of the Holy Spirit says is true. It is a right-minded interpretation of illusions that were in Helen's mind. Illusions have simply been repurposed to be helpful instead of unhelpful. Gary Renard has said he was always a keen politics and conspiracy theory enthusiast. When he joined with the light in his mind, his darkness was brought to it. The contents of his mind were given a right-minded interpretation. Just like Helen projected her guilt as judgment onto the Bible and the church, Gary projected his guilt onto politicians and the deep state. And the book clearly teaches that, yes, this appears to be happening in the dream, and we actually scripted it to happen in the dream so we could hide our guilt here through projection. And the book clearly teaches none of it is important, none of it matters, and our only job is to undo any guilt that we see in it. So the disappearance of the universe is a right-minded interpretation of what was already in Gary's mind. It is not the Holy Spirit talking about politics and conspiracy theory. The Holy Spirit doesn't believe in politics and conspiracy theory. But see how easy it is to confuse form and content. Many of Gary's readers think that because the echo of the voice of the Holy Spirit, as Arten and Persa, speak so long about politics and conspiracy theories, that they need to take them seriously. They believe that they're not woke enough if they're not spreading the fear and judgment. And they believe that other Course in Miracles students aren't woke unless they're also up in arms about world affairs and making them real. It's just like saying, I need to know Shakespeare because Jesus talks about it in the Course in Miracles. The Holy Spirit doesn't bring light to darkness. Darkness is brought to the Holy Spirit's light and given a right-minded interpretation. Don't obsess on the form. Look at the content. Ask yourself, what is it for? And when anyone shares something from the Holy Spirit, it is not what the Holy Spirit said. The Holy Spirit doesn't say anything. If the person has in fact joined with the real Holy Spirit and not a genie Holy Spirit, then what's said is what was already in their mind, given a right-minded interpretation. It is their darkness brought to the light. It is their own script forgiven. And it can be very, very, very useful to them and often to everyone. But don't confuse form with content. The content is all that matters. The only thing that matters is not being separate. It is the decision to correct the decision to be separate. You have only one problem in your life, and it is the decision to be separate. There are no problems apart from that. There is only one answer to everything, which is to join with the Holy Spirit by saying no to being separate from him. That's it. In chapter 2 of the Course, Helen is complaining to Jesus about the things she is afraid of. And Jesus says, the correction of your fear is your responsibility. When you ask for release from fear, you are implying that it's not. You should ask instead for help in the conditions that have brought the fear about. And these conditions always entail a willingness to be separate. He's saying, don't ask me for specifics. Don't ask me to help with things you are afraid of or to take away your fear or indecision. Ask me only to help you undo the judgments you're clinging to as an ego instead of joining with me. If you join with me, there'll be no fear. In a conversation with Jesus, not recorded in the Course, Helen was trying to help a psychology client she was working with. And she asked Jesus, what should I say to this brother? And Jesus answered, do not ask me what to say or what to do for this brother. Ask only for my help to undo your judgments of him. He's saying, don't ask me for specifics. Undo your judgments so you can join with me. And when you do that, loving and helpful action will just flow through you and you won't have to think about it. So I want to highlight, as we wrap up today's talk, just how very invested we all are in having a genie that will tell us what to say and what to do by making the separation real and everything that seemed to happen afterwards. But it doesn't work. Jesus says, do not ask for the echo. You cannot ask for the echo. It will not work. It's our ego's way of keeping us from the real Holy Spirit. There is a massive investment in us, in our specialness and individuality, and a great reluctance in us to join with the real Holy Spirit. No matter what terrible problems we bring to the real Holy Spirit, his mere presence says, what problems? Your only problem is that you're separate from me. And our egos hate that. But if we do ask for help to undo our own beliefs, guilt, and judgments, there's an opportunity to join. We don't have to let those judgments go completely, but we absolutely need to not want to hold on to them. That's the little willingness. And with that little willingness, there's a sparking of light in our mind that communicates all is well for eternity, despite the illusion of form. And in that experience, or sometime afterwards, we feel what to do in the dream, knowing it doesn't matter. All that matters is that I choose against separation to experience the joining and love and peace. That's all that matters. It's the song you want, not the notes. It's the love you want, not the answers. Forget the echoes. They'll come by themselves when an experience of love in the holy instant shows you how insignificant they are. When you make love important instead of echoes, you'll have the echoes and you'll know how insignificant they are. Okay, so I know there's a lot of challenging ideas in there to consider. We went way down deep into the non-duality rabbit hole with none of the training wheels. Your ego is going to hate a lot of what I said, but if you can get past that and any murderous thoughts against me for saying them, you have an opportunity to enter into the holy instant like never before and save yourself thousands of years. We need only not choose to be separate. Thanks very much for your attention, everyone.
Thank you so much. Now, can you hear my voice?
Yeah, you're a little distant, but I can hear.
Okay, great. I just want to remind everyone at this moment, could you please make sure you're on mute. When we come back after the intermission, we're going to have an opportunity for some of us to ask some questions, and we got to make sure that they're not double questions.
You covered the whole course, Keith, so I don't know. It's pretty clear.
Thank you very much. I'm glad to hear it.
Absolutely. I can't even tell you how amazing this presentation was. There are no words to describe it.
And the ego gave us a bit of a hard time with, disconnecting.
Of course.
Absolutely. Yeah, I know, but you got to just carry on, right? When all these things happen, you just have to keep your peace.
Forgive and keep going.
So how about if we take a 5-minute break? I like to call it a shake a leg break. Get a coffee, have a water, use the washroom, whatever we need to do, and then we'll come back if Keith is okay with that, and we can maybe have some questions.
No problem.
Okay. Awesome. So we'll see you shortly. That's okay, everyone? Okay.
Now, in that 5 minutes, when we can get back on there, just by chance.
We're back and we actually have sound. Wow.
Very good.
Okay, so welcome again, everyone. We have the recording just started. So this is actually the third segment of Miracle Monday with Keith Kavanagh. So Keith, how would you feel about, maybe we could, we have two people with their hands up, so would you like to continue?
Sure.
Okay, absolutely.
Sure.
I'm not sure who had their hand up first. It doesn't matter. I just want to make a suggestion, though, to try to keep your questions as, concise as possible, just to keep it, you know what I'm trying to say. All right, so how about we start with George?
Okay, hi. I thought that was a brilliant, very brilliant speech. And so what I want to know is, like, what I'm doing all day long is the true forgiveness. I call them treatments. And I wondered if you could give an example, like, for instance, okay, say I have a lot of anxiety and fear and depression and awful stuff at a certain point in the day, that the unconscious guilt is coming up and I feel awful. What I do is I give it to the Holy Spirit or Jesus, and then I ask for the correction. And I ask to join with the mind of the Holy Spirit, and I ask to become one with Jesus, to look at it or to understand it. Is that what that's the true forgiveness process that I do? So I give it over, I ask for the correction, I ask to join with the mind of the Holy Spirit and to become one with Jesus. And can you tell me anything more I need, or maybe I'm all wrong? But
No, George, that sounds pretty good to me. I mean, look, I'm going to give you some tweaks, which
yeah, that's what I want. Thank you.
Myself. Okay. Look, when you go through the workbook of A Course in Miracles, and lots of people miss this, it is a training in how to be a still, alert presence. To hold that in your mind, to be that still, alert presence. That's what the workbook is training you. And you can access that still, alert presence. It's the equivalent of stepping back from the ego and being the decision maker mind. I like to think of it like this. So if we think about a gear shift, I think you call it a gear shift in North America, we call it a gear stick. So you have forwards, you have neutral, and you have back. And forwards and back can't communicate with each other, but they can both communicate with the middle, or the middle can choose forwards, or the middle neutral can choose back. So we can think about neutral as being that still, alert presence, which can be aware. So that still, alert presence in me can be aware of Keith. And that still, alert presence is always the same in every single situation. If I'm in the middle of something pleasant and I remember to be the still, alert presence, that witness. So that's the equivalent of sitting in the movie theater with Jesus looking at the screen. I can remember. So it's really important to my forgiveness process that I experience that still, alert presence. See, again, Keith, the ego, can't communicate with the Holy Spirit. I've got to step back from Keith. And that's a really hard thing to do, to hold yourself as the decision maker. We're not going to be able to do that. And that's why the course isn't a course in anything positive. It's a course in the negative. What you want to do is be what you are by observing what you're not. So if I'm that still, alert presence, I'm aware of Keith. And it really doesn't matter if I'm in the middle of anger or annoyance or happiness or celebration. It really doesn't matter if I'm drinking, or if I'm going to the bathroom, or if I'm shaving, or whatever I'm doing, eating. The still, alert presence always feels exactly the same, and that's me as the decision maker. So when I need to start my forgiveness process, it's really important for me to step backwards from forwards on the gear shift and back into neutral, where I can feel that still, alert presence. And from there, from that place, I can say, I mean, very powerfully for me to say in those situations is, at least I can decide I don't like how I feel. So again, what we want is a holy instant, and we don't have to be absolutely purified for a holy instant, but we have to be willing to hold on to nothing. So I must have decided wrongly, so I'm not, because I'm not at peace. And I can at least notice that and go, I don't like how I'm feeling. And to me then, when I do that, and when I want, I want to see peace instead of this. Now, maybe I can't yet, but I want to see peace instead of this. That's the invitation to the Holy Spirit. And that's when I can feel the love. But again, A Course in Miracles is a training in mysticism. You don't want to get locked into formulas with no soul. The formulas are really important because they get you out of your ego and back as being a mind. So that's the value of the formulas, and they're essential. I've quoted a few of them there. You want the formula to get back to being the still alert presence, which can be there whether you're feeling happy or sad or angry or anxious or depressed. That still alert presence, you can always just bring it to your awareness. And from there, to me, that's the access point to the Holy Spirit's correction. Does that make sense?
Yes, I like the gear shift analogy. I'm going to work on that.
Cool.
Thank you very much.
My pleasure. You there, Stephanie? Maybe Stephanie doesn't hear us again.
No, I can hear you.
Yep,
Ah,
Lynn,
good.
sorry about that. You can go ahead and unmute yourself, Lynn.
Oh, okay. Thank you. First of all, I apologize because I had the wrong time for this starting and I didn't come in until almost the end. So I apologize. I'll listen to the recording. Sounded like it was a great talk, but I did hear something and maybe I misunderstood because of coming in late. But I thought you said that the Holy Spirit is really not going to tell us what to do. And I'm just wondering how that jives with, like, last week we were told by the speaker to take the Course in Miracles at its word. And, the truly helpful prayer says, I do not have to worry what to say or what to do because he who sent me will direct me. And also in the introduction, it's pretty clear that he says he will direct your efforts, telling you exactly what to do. That's a quote. Well, actually, I think that's in the workbook. So did I misunderstand something or?
No, the bad news is you didn't misunderstand it. The good news is I do actually explain it in the talk, so it will make sense when you hear back. We're working with the Song of Prayer pamphlet where Jesus tweaked the forgiveness formulas and the asking for guidance formulas. And in the Song of the Prayer, Jesus says, the guidance that you get is the echo of the reply of his voice. It is not his voice, which is only a song of thanksgiving and love. So we do get, it's not like the Holy Spirit tells us what to do. It's like we connect with the Holy Spirit and action happens through us. That's why that statement says, I don't have to worry about what to say or what to do. When I'm connected with the Holy Spirit, that happens through me. It isn't really coming from my ego.
Well, what about the line where he says he will direct your efforts, telling you exactly what to do?
And again, directing is the key word there. Your ego doesn't do it. It happens through you when you are connected with the Holy Spirit. See, we have to be really careful that we don't take the idea that the Holy Spirit wants to put us on a mission. Like, any psychics or mediums that go through training for their craft, they're all warned about this phase where you like grow spiritually, where you feel like you have a mission and you need to save the world. And like the Course says, seek not to change the world, seek to change your mind about the world. Let the world be exactly what it is and all its horror and glory, without any need that it be different. If you do, that's a grievance. Our only purpose here is to forgive it all. And so we need to be really careful of like feeling like we have a special mission from the Holy Spirit, because that's just my specialness and my ego. When I'm in the real world, my ego is not involved. I mean, I don't have an ego, but even now when I'm in the holy instant, I don't do anything. It happens through me, and that's the goal.
Right, I understand that distinction. Although the Course does talk about this, the Course and also, as a holy crusade. It actually uses the word crusade. And it talks about us having a special function. So, and I think he knows that we're, he takes us where we are, which is pretty much identified with the ego. And of course, he tries to get us to disidentify with the ego and identify more with the spirit. But I think he knows he's going to be directing us as we're identified with the ego in this world that we think we're in, that we're really not in. So it all gets very difficult to.
I would just give the distinction, Lynn, that the Course tells us that the ego and the Holy Spirit can't communicate with each other. It's like different.
Can't what? I'm sorry, can't what?
So the Course teaches us that the ego and the Holy Spirit can't communicate with one another.
Oh, right. Well,
they are
yeah.
completely opposite thought systems. So the Holy Spirit is not going to tell your ego to do anything. The only part of you it can communicate with is the person, is that still aware presence. It's the decision maker. It's that part of you that can be aware of Lynn without judging her.
Yeah.
Well, the Holy Spirit is the bridge. The Holy Spirit is the bridge, and the decision maker is really a function within our minds rather than an actual part per se.
Yes.
It's all parts. I mean, it's a split mind. I mean, everything is, symbols and symbols and symbols and symbols. I mean, I personally find it more helpful to see the decision maker as the Son of God, and then the ego is just a thought or a belief system it can choose to believe or not. And so is the Holy Spirit. It's a correction he can choose or not. So to me, it makes more sense to think in terms of the decision maker as a more helpful representation of what I am for now, even though it's still an illusion. And then the Holy Spirit and the ego are that's the choices that are available.
Yeah, so
Excuse me, just let me cut in here for a second. One thing we have to really understand is the decision maker is not in the world.
Absolutely.
The decision
Outside
maker
of
is
time
in
and
the
space.
mind, and that mind is outside of time and space.
Right.
The Course is never talking to the personal I that's in the world. It's talking to the decision maker in the mind.
Right.
And we really have to understand that to understand what the Course is actually saying. It's not talking to that personal I that thinks it's in a world. There is no world. If that helps you at all, it's very important to understand that aspect of the Course.
It's funny because it's only really, I guess you could say lately that I'm really understanding that it's not a course in behavior modification. It's not a course in behavior at all. It's a course in what's going on in the mind.
That's it.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. And it's a course in it is a course on being able to allow the world to unfold as it's scripted with no desire that it be different.
Right.
That's what it is. Because a grievance is anything I say that shouldn't be like that. Well, of course it should. I scripted it. I need it to be there so I can be without my guilt. So I can say that's the problem. So the entire Course in Miracles is quite simply let your script unfold in all its horror and glory. Bring on the sickness and the deaths of your loved ones and all the horrors that you scripted so you could say, I am the innocent victim. Don't come for me, God. I'm the innocent victim. Look how I suffer. I mean, Jesus says in the Course, death is a small price to pay if I can just say, behold me, brother, at your hands I died. I'm without my guilt. I am the victim, not the victimizer.
Yeah. Yeah. That's excellent.
Excuse me.
Okay, but are you ready for another question, Keith?
Sure.
Okay, Pam, go right ahead. You can take yourself off mute.
Hi, can you hear me?
Hi, Pam, we can.
Oh, great. Well, first of all, thank you for your presentation. It was wonderful. There's just so much in there, and I can't wait to listen to it again because you know how that is.
Thank you.
Needed to listen to it several times, I think, before I get it. My question was a comment you made during your talk about purpose, and that caught my ear. And is there anything you can add to what you were, what the purpose, when the Course talks about that?
Sure. Whenever I think about that, I always think about the part in the Course where Jesus says, I have said, if your brother asks you to do something foolish, you should do it. Because that's a perfect example of purpose. And he doesn't mean you should do something that would put you in danger or put your brother in danger. But, I always think, let's try and think of an example. So if someone says to me something like, where was God when my son died? Okay, I could say, well, I'm in A Course in Miracles student, and your son was never born, and he'll never die, and God doesn't even know we're here, and this is all an illusion. And what's my purpose there? It's absolutely useless, and it's not loving, and it's not helpful. If I was connected with the Holy Spirit in my mind, I would actually go along with where that person's at. I wouldn't impose some belief system of mine on them. I wouldn't insist on a truth, because there is no truth in the dream. The ego is an illusion, and the Holy Spirit is an illusion. And they'll both disappear when we return to God. The Holy Spirit is the correction of the ego's lie. When there's no more ego lie, there's no more Holy Spirit. So everything that the Holy Spirit says is an illusion. Everything the ego says is an illusion, but the ego's illusions lock us into the illusion further, and the Holy Spirit's illusions, they give us freedom from the illusion, if that makes sense. So in a situation where someone says to me, where was God when my son died? Something truly helpful to say would be right where he was when his own son died. Now that's helpful. But it doesn't mean it's true that God believes in the world, and it doesn't mean it's true that I think Jesus was a special son in the crucifixion, but that's what a helpful thing to say is. And you see, this is why I says we have to be really careful that we don't confuse form with content. What's the purpose is the only truth in the illusion. Does that answer your question?
Sorry, I muted. Well, I'm still confused. I guess want to sit with it longer.
Well, let me take another crack at it here, Pam. Let me take another crack at it, because the entire Course in Miracles is a really good example of what's it for. If you take the Course in Miracles as a textbook, it contradicts itself. On the one hand, Jesus says that the Holy Spirit is a comforter, and he's a helper, and he's an advisor. And then in another part of the Course in Miracles, Jesus says the Holy Spirit is a symbol. The Holy Spirit is just our memory of heaven. So you see, if you look at those two things, you go, why is he contradicting himself? Why does he say one thing and then say the exact opposite? Like, there's loads of parts in the Course that make it sound like, ask the Holy Spirit for help with all the things in your life. It seems like that. And there's one even heretical passage in the workbook where it says, ask God for help with the things in your life. And so what you've got to ask yourself is, what is it for? The Course says that God created the Holy Spirit as a solution that would go into our dream with us and save us from ourselves, right? The Course says that he sent the Holy Spirit to us. But when the separation happened, God created the Holy Spirit and sent it in. But again, the Course also says God doesn't do anything. So why does the Course say that? I mean, on the one hand, it says God doesn't even know we're here. And then on the other hand, it says God is lonely without us. And so it goes back to something I went through in the talk there, which is that the Holy Spirit is where the darkness is brought to the light. It's not where the light is brought to the darkness. And what we have existing is an ego script. The ego told us that if we ever looked at our guilt, God would strike us dead. And the ego told us that the Holy Spirit is God's general, who's been sent to bring us back to him so we can be destroyed and restore heaven's oneness. So all Jesus is doing there is he's looking at the ego's horror fairy tale and giving it a right-minded interpretation. So what's the purpose? The purpose is to remove the fear of the Holy Spirit. Now, once we've done that, later on in the Course, he tells us, well, the Holy Spirit is just the memory of heaven. You just connect with that, and by its mere presence, it undoes everything. So when we're ready for a deeper truth, he does that. But can you see how purpose is everything?
Yeah. I think you something clicked. just now when you were talking about the Holy Spirit.
Is this-
That-
Yeah, there's no truth in the dream. There's nothing the Holy Spirit can say that's true. Everything in the dream is a lie, but there's useful lies, and there's the bad lies that lock us more into the illusion. The useful ones are a right-minded interpretation of the bad ones, and they can unstick us from the illusion. They can awaken us from the illusion. So everything's about purpose.
Awesome. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pam. Okay, is there anybody else that has a question for Keith? We're really coming along, we're clipping along very well here. Okay, it looks like Karina Russo. I may not have pronounced it correct. There you go. You can just go ahead and unmute yourself.
Sorry, it's correct,
Hi, Karina.
Karina Razo. Hi, how are you? Well, I have a question about what's going on in the world that it really doesn't exist. And it's about, for example, somebody mentioned about prayers, no, to deal with some situation, or maybe going into a march in order to look for something that you want, for example, freedom. And now that it's in the world, no, with all of this COVID thing. So what I was thinking is, I used to go to march in order to look for this freedom. Now I don't do that anymore because I think it's not useful. That is not real. I need to change my mind because the problem is that this is not real. So I need to forgive what caused that. Is that correct?
Yes and no. Yes, because everything that's happening, I wanted it to happen. I needed things in my script to victimize me so I could be the innocent victim and not the victimizer of God. Remember, that guilt in my mind, which I have no access to, I don't know that horrific guilt and fear in my mind, because I've given myself amnesia that I'm a mind, like everyone down here. The only way I can know that horrific guilt and fear is because I'm projecting it onto everything in the world. And so I'm seeing the horrors of tyranny and the horrors of my freedom getting taken away from me. And I can feel myself getting angry and having a grievance with it. And there's my trick that says, aha, there's where I buried my guilt. So the only meaningful thing for me to do then is to take that guilt back where it's judgment, understand it's my guilt, and have the Holy Spirit teach me that I'm not guilty. So that's the yes part. Okay, the other side of this is the Course never, ever, anywhere, and you can get really off base when you think that it does, it never tells us what to do. Or not do in the world ever. Even when it seems like it does, it doesn't. Because there is no world. It's a course in cause and not effect. So it's not evil and sinful to march for something or against something. It's only wrong if I think it's important, or if I'm invested in it, or if my happiness is dependent on it, or if it's taking away my peace. Or crucially, if I think it's spiritual. Nothing I do is spiritual.
Okay, it makes sense.
So I think when the horrors are visited on us, we have to remind ourselves, I wanted that. That was the only way I could have an existence without my guilt, was to see that terrible guilt outside of myself. I needed that in my script. I couldn't have had my script without that horror.
Okay.
And my only job is to forgive it. In other words, have those horrific victimizers in my life and not see guilt in them. That's all the Course is teaching me how to do. That's how I get to the real world.
You go ahead. Yeah.
Just one thing that we have to realize, there's no such thing as freedom in the world, and there's no such thing as peace in the world.
Right.
That's an impossibility. It was made not to have freedom or not to have peace.
Right.
But we can have peace of mind. And that's where the peace is. It's in your mind. That's the whole purpose of the Course, is to bring your mind back to peace, because peace is the condition of heaven.
Yes.
It is.
That's the whole Course's purpose.
So beautiful.
So you can't really do anything in the world to bring about peace. It'll never happen.
No. Wasn't scripted that way. Peace won't get rid of my guilt.
Yeah. Now, do we have time for one more question, Keith?
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, now I just want to say this before we address our next question. And after that, we have a little surprise for everyone. But that we're going to keep that as a surprise. We'll just carry on here now. Okay, Fran, you go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hi, thank you, Keith and everyone. Okay, I need to use sort of form structures to move myself along. So I don't really have questions per se, except for, is this useful, what I'm about to say? One of the things I think thought of while listening was that thing St. Augustine said, and I don't like him, so it's just what he said. I think he was kind of a turd. But anyway, he did say, love and then do anything you want. And what I hear is that in this guidance of the Holy Spirit is this stillness, this constant stillness that is holding. And again, here's a form tool that I use, holding this love, this stillness. When I was 16, I had, I think, a revelation, and I was lucky enough to have a sister, Benedictine sister, validate it and also help me stay grounded. It was really kind of a nothingness. It was a revelation of a nothingness. Although I did see as if it were a night sky with little stars all over, but that was, and it was a sense, it was absolutely certain that this was the truth, whatever that was, that it was a total certainty that there was absolutely, language is so useless, but that I knew it was the truth. Oh, there's nothing to worry about. And of course, then I brought some form into it, I think, and saying, oh, there's the light in everything. The light is in everything. Anyway, so of course, I thought everything was going to be wonderful from there forward. And Sister Diane said, well, this will probably go away and whenever. And so as this course is, okay, so there's this stillness. And when I bring my darkness, and there's so freaking much of it, to the light, and say, basically, in a nutshell, to keep it simple, I want to see this differently. I don't have peace, and I want peace. I'm so sick and tired of being sick and tired. So I'm bringing this to the light, and I want to see it differently. I want to see it through the vision of the Holy Spirit. So, and there are many things in form, like my oldest grandchildren, that I want to change constantly. But I've been practicing, and instead of coming up with a new script, which this one's over, I'll just say, I want to see this differently. I want peace. How does that come about? And often it's this thing about denial. If I deny I have these murderous thoughts, or this victim, whatever, I can list them, and we all can, then I can't heal it. If I don't believe it's there, I can't heal it.
Correct.
So I get that part, even though it was not fun. And it isn't fun because it keeps coming up. So, but this Holy Spirit holds this stillness. And in some of the lessons now, there is, I can touch a stillness.
Correct.
And there is some kind of subtle, pervasive calmness in my day-to-day life. So when the ego stuff crops up with this one or that one, I can acknowledge, oh, there's judgment, there's ego, there's me wanting to control that. And I can, I have to do, okay, I have to say out loud, I'm the decision maker. I'm a decision maker. I can choose ego or Holy Spirit vision to see this in that split mind. That's what kind of works for me. And I've been able to get this sort of more and more objectivity, observing energy.
That's the trick. See,
Yeah.
the trick is bear in mind that Fran is the ego.
Yeah,
It's not,
I've
Yeah,
actually,
so-
another tool is when I've said I want to see this differently, I'll say I want to see Fran and say Damien, my grandson or my husband, I want to see Fran, et cetera, differently. I'll make myself a third person, if you will.
I would say it's really important to that stillness you're talking about. It's really important that when you want to do your stillness, that you can feel that still alert presence, which is aware of Fran, but not Fran. But crucially, it's not judging Fran. It's allowing Fran to be there with no investment in it. That's what's crucial. Because if you're in that space, now you've access to the Holy Spirit.
That's going to unmute herself there. Yeah, Fran, you're on mute here because I just, yeah. Go ahead. We're almost.
I'm sorry. Oh, I'm so sorry. Did I do that? How did that happen? Okay.
Okay.
I don't know where. Anyway, I have some of the miracles for me is that I've actually been able to bring some of this ego stuff to the Holy Spirit without guilt. That astounded me. It was like, oh, wow. I really,
Good.
it's like forgiving a child their little mistakes as they're experiencing or trying this stuff. It's like, oh, you just didn't know. So it's been fascinating. But the guidance, quote unquote, I want to address that quickly and then I'll stop. The guidance isn't specific. The guidance is now an understanding that if I just stop, okay, oh, I want my grandson to do this and my husband to do this and even myself to do that. And then I'll stop. Oh, that's ego. That's insanity. And I stop and I just acknowledge it. And then I can go a little bit further. And what I'm realizing, if I ask instead, now this is where it's working for me. So if I ask instead, I want to see this differently. I chose wrongly because I'm not at peace. I want peace, so etc. That I don't worry about what the dream is going to look like after that. One, the dream is supposed to be all over, just shoot me. It's just so, but anyway, is that
as Gloria Wapnick would say, you want to become thunk. You don't want to worry about what it is you have to do. You just simply, in other words, you connect with, there's a sparking of love in your mind, and that love simply expresses itself in the most effective and loving
I
way.
will do whatever I do in this dream with love. And then I can't harm anyone. I won't harm anyone. I won't harm myself. It won't matter.
Correct.
And I've had glimpses of that. Okay.
Yes.
I've had glimpses of that. And that's the
it's the
best I can
highest
do right
spiritual
now.
attainment. When you can say, what does it matter? That's the highest spiritual attainment. An illusion is an illusion is an illusion. What does it matter?
Right.
And
Okay.
the simple answer is, the Course says, I'm the decision maker. I can choose peace instead of this. There's only two things. You either choose peace or you choose conflict. That's it.
Yes.
The Course is very simple.
It is. It just ain't easy. But anyway.
Yes, it isn't easy. It isn't easy to put into practice, but you must realize you are the decision maker. You must choose peace.
Oh, I've got that part. I just don't always do it. So, but I'm getting there.
None of us do. None of us do, Fran. Don't worry, you're not alone.
Doesn't that just piss you off? Anyway, I'm done.
It's a
I'm done.
process.
Yeah.
It's a process.
You know, the thing that I've learned more than anything else on this path, and I became very honest with myself. That's really what had to happen. And the other thing was that I had to really want peace. Yeah,
You really are incorrigible, Lloyd.
oh my goodness. Okay, guys, now we're again, so what we have here now, and we're going to come back after this, by the way, but we have someone here now that would like to sing a song for us. So if everybody could put themselves now on mute. Again, now we're not finished with the session, but we're just going to have a little treat here in this moment. We're going to shift gears, as Keith would talk about. We're going to go now from neutral. We went from 1 to neutral, and now we're going to go into another gear. Megan is here. So Megan, are you unmuted?
I believe so. Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you now.
Beautiful.
Let me just get the speaker up, the speaker view. And go ahead now, Megan. And so this is Megan. Megan is, how do you pronounce your last name? McGlenning?
That's right. Perfect.
Oh, there you are.
Woo. I'm just kidding. So yeah, I just had this thing come out, and I do these, like, it's kind of how I meditate with spirit is through sound, and I try to incorporate all that into sound and share it when I can. And so this one doesn't really have a title, and I'll try and sing it clearly. It's a bit weird when you're given a song like that doesn't come from your waking consciousness, then you have to learn it. So I guess it's like, so I followed my guidance on this one. So bear with me, guys. I hope you enjoy it, and I hope you enjoy the ride that this one is. No, I can't help it. The way you make me feel when you're keeping it real. The way you take my breath right out of my chest. I can't help myself. I can't find my ground. No, I can't help it. The way I lose my words, so love can be heard when you look at me so intensely. I can't help myself. I can't find my ground when I hear your voice. Lord, I have no choice, and I will seek for joy. Yes, I will seek for joy. No, I can't help myself, yet I can't leave myself here. You're the heart in my soul, and I'm the soul in your heart. And we dance together, never apart. Don't you know we'll hold? Move with me and don't let go. And I can't help it. No, I can't help myself. I have to go though, because that's my lunch break. So
Megan, thank you so much.
bye.
So sweet. We love
Wonderful,
you.
Megan. Thank you.
That's so awesome. Wow. I don't even know what to say at this point. I got to say this, though. I know the Holy Spirit doesn't do anything in time and space, but you know what? I mentioned to Megan yesterday to, perhaps be here at 2:00 to do her song. And I had no idea how long any of this was going to go. I don't even look at the time. And at exactly 2:00, she started to sing.
Yeah.
So it's beautiful.
Spirit is in charge
but-
of time and space.
Right.
When you're connected with the Holy Spirit, Stephanie, you're connected with all minds.
That's
Right.
it. Yeah.
and the past and the future. So you don't need the Holy Spirit to do it. You get that information just because you know you're connected. Because you know, it's really important to understand that we don't join with other people. That there are no other people. We only join with the Holy Spirit, and once we do that, we are connected to everyone already. We don't ever connect to anyone. That would mean we weren't connected. We're connected all the time. We're all connected at the level of mind, but it's when we join with the Holy Spirit that we know that's true, and then we have access to all that information psychically.
That's why there's no private thoughts.
Right.
Absolutely.
Literally. That's excellent. Well, I don't even know what to say at this point, other than the fact that we're going to stop the recording now, and I want to
I
thank.
just want to say one thing, Keith. Is this the first time you've really spoke?
It is, yeah.
Well, let me tell you, amazing.
Wow.
Oh, thank you very much.
You're an absolute natural. It's like
Yeah.
mind clearing, I call it.
That's very-
Listen, I am a shameless Ken Wapnick fan and Ken Wapnick student, and anything I can be helpful with in terms of understanding the course to anyone is only because I'm standing on Uncle Ken's shoulders. That's the truth of it.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Wow, that's very
Yeah.
good. Now, I want to invite everyone here now, and we're going to just stick around, okay? Because we always have a little after party. We're going to actually stop the recording in a couple of minutes, but I want to invite everyone to unmute themselves to just thank Keith so he can feel the love coming back to him that he just expressed. Thank you, Keith.
Thank you, Keith.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Love Ken too.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you very
you.
much.
Get a
Love
YouTube
you.
channel so
Thank
we can
you.
hear more
Yes.
of you.
Yes, Patty. Say it louder, Patty.
I said, get a YouTube channel so we can hear more of you.
Yes.
We're always looking for teachers, and you are definitely
Thank you.
one.
Well, I'll tell you guys how Holy
Thanks,
Spirit
Patty.
works. I